And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Thursday, October 26, 2017. Second King reporting live from the Chunnigung Palace to all the kings and queens of the Kingdom of God. Today, we are joined by Dr. Paul Williams. And as the intro, as you'll see, this is an interview that was done on Tuesday. As you know, it's hard for people to get on the show at 5 in the morning, and especially if they're on the West Coast. Dr. Paul is he's in Scranton. But for other guests who are on the West Coast, it's absolutely impossible. They have to get up at 3, 4 in the morning to do a live interview. So sometimes we'll have to interview them in the evenings as for that. So that's why we have sometimes the interviews on different days or scheduled at other times, because it is generally hard for the normal population to get up at 5 in the morning. All of you who are joining in are just a little bit crazy, but in a good way for God, and we love you for it. But this was an interview that we did, and we were playing it, of course, airing for the first time today. This is with Dr. Paul Williams. His intro is upcoming. Check it out. And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report, broadcasting live from the Chunnigung Palace. Second King reporting live to all the kings and queens of the Kingdom of God. We are now joined with Dr. Paul Williams, patriot, friend, incredible writer, former New York Times best-selling writer as well. Has many works on 15 different books. On all sorts of topics, investigative journalist, former FBI, and so he has done everything under the sun. A true man of God, with his new book out entitled "Among the Ruins: The Decline and Fall of the Roman Catholic Church." He's also a professor at Scranton University, adjunct professor there, and we're so grateful to have Dr. Williams on the show. Dr. Williams, so great to hear from you.
It's good to hear from you, Pastor.
Hey, it's been such a long time. Let us know about what you've been up to. We were so blessed when you came and spoke at the Sanctuary Church and just opened everybody's eyes to the reality of Gladio and all the different types of operations that you were talking about. We were definitely, a lot of people were woken up at that time politically, and it just helped to strengthen, the body of Christ to wake up, to be aware of what's going on, how Satan is moving, and how he utilizes real systems of politics, etc., to implement his will. So we're so grateful to be able to speak with you again.
Well, the last time I spoke to your congregation, I spoke to them about Gladio and the fact that the government is not run by elected officials. It's run by a cabal of international bankers and businessmen, people who primarily control energy. You see, energy, anyone who controls energy throughout the world controls everything, even controls money. And the people that are really behind the shadow of government are the people who before controlled things like big oil. And the more I looked into that, the more I realized that the United States and really governments throughout the world are all really being puppeteered by a group that consists of people like the Rockefellers and the Morgan family and the Rothschilds, and more of that is coming to light, I think, through the internet. But,
yes.
My original, when I first went up to your church, that's after I uncovered Islamic compounds throughout the country. I was a real investigative reporter.
That was amazing.
And I found out that these compounds, including one not too far from your church, not too far from the Sanctuary Church, around between Hancock and Deposit, New York, it's called Islamberg. There are hundreds of jihadis there who go to that camp from the prison system. They're felons, ex-felons, and at Islamberg, they're trained in automatic, semi-automatic weapons and explosives. on firing ranges, on obstacle courses, underground bunkers. At the end of their training at Islamabad, they're sent to Pakistan. These are people, and there are about 40 of these camps throughout the country. But they're sent to Pakistan. From Pakistan, they go into Afghanistan, and they fight with the Taliban against our forces. Now, these are people who are trained in the United States.
Oh, my gosh. How do they get away with this, Dr. Williams?
Yes, and when I came to your church, I had discovered that Islamberg and all these other compounds were being funded by the U.S. government. And
wow.
That was a real eye-opener. The founder of Islamberg and Jamaat al-Fukr, the group that does all this training, is jihadi training throughout the United States. Jelani came here in 1979 on a CIA transport with blind Sheikh Rahman, and that kind of opened my eyes. And then I discovered that Rahman was preaching at a place called the Farouk Mosque in Brooklyn, and this mosque was receiving millions of dollars in support from the U.S. government. So I realized that just by my investigations that a lot of things that are taking place don't add up, and they're not really being controlled by people that we think are controlling them. That there's a force behind the curtain.
Well,
and
weren't you almost killed when you went into one of these compounds one time? You were chased off the property with armed.
Oh yeah. Not matter of fact, Pastor, if you go online and you'll see all these photographs. They were on Fox News. A guy by the name of Martin Moyer from the so-called Christian Action Network showed these photographs. They were taken by me. And, but I think I'm the only one who actually went in there. And I went in there with a guy who definitely weighs about 350 pounds. And it's in a valley. I mean, you're going down through the woods into this compound, and they're armed and dangerous. And they're ready to kill you. And when we got down to the basin of the valley, people spotted us, and they said, they said, go get them. And by the time I got at the top of the mountain, I'm not in bad shape for an old man. I mean, I run 5 miles 3 times a week, excuse me. But this guy who was 300 and some pounds reached the top of the mountain and he never exercises at all. That's how scary it was. He went up there like a cannonball. And I mean, we were out of there. When we were driving down the mountain, this is on Roods Creek Road, leading down from Islamberg. I mean, there were vans right behind us. It was kind of spooky. But
how did they get away with this? I mean, was this was under the Obama administration?
What's that again?
Now, how did they get away with this? Shouldn't Trump do away with such things? I mean, Trump is, doing many things that he promised during the campaign trail. I mean, of course, he's got the whole Republican Party against him, including, of course, the leftist lunatic Democrats. But he is trying to deliver on the things that he promised. He's doing as much as he can. But shouldn't he get rid of these Islamic jihadi training camps in the U.S. that are funded by taxpayer dollar?
I agree with what you're saying about Trump. I think he's probably the only hope, for the country. But I'm not sure. Listen, in order to really control and be in control of everything, man, you have to be almost omniscient. And he is as good as he is. And I support Trump 100%, but he's making some really harebrained decisions. For instance, even what he did in northern Iraq with the Kurds. I mean, he's receiving advice that's only going to, I'm fearful, will lead us into more and more and more conflict. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that he has really purged the government of all the neocons, and he has to do that before we're I mean that's first and foremost.
Those neocon generals around him, the warmongering generals, are all around him now, and they're stopping from information flowing into the White House. So, but again, he did destroy, ISIS's presence in Raqqa. But again, it may suck us in even deeper, as you're saying. So that's a worry.
Yeah, and what he did with the Kurds, was, and the Kurds were the number one fighting force against ISIS, and they tried to set up their own little settlement there in northern Iraq, and he did away with them. I mean, that just occurred this week. So I think the situation there, as you know, Pastor, really concerns money and resources and energy,
right.
As I said before. On the basin of the Caspian Sea, you have such great wealth, oil, natural gas, uranium, gold, such fantastic wealth that everybody's trying to tap into it. The Chinese, the Russians, of course we are. And the key to that wealth is to establish a pipeline that would run from the basin of the Caspian Sea, which is a landlocked sea, from the basin of the Caspian Sea through Iran, through northern Iraq, into Syria, and from Syria to the Mediterranean Sea. You need to have the pipeline in order to drain all these resources. That's what the struggle is all about. It's all about money. And I think that right now, I think, Trump, I think, fell into the quagmire. One is these endless wars are senseless. They're going to innervate the country. They're going to drain us of hundreds of thousands of lives. But at the same time, he realizes that we cannot control our supremacy, the U.S. supremacy, without acquiring the resources, the world's resources. So it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. But we're in a situation right now where, of course, the best solution, from my perspective, would be just to forget about it all. Forget about Iran, forget about Iraq, forget about the resources. Just worry about our country. Bring back.
Like Steve Bannon was talking about that in the Hudson Institute just on Monday, yesterday, in his appearance there. He was saying, "Hey, this is potentially we could get into further entanglements." And of course, it's disappointing that the Trump administration is not talking about Saudi Arabia, their pedophile monarchy, all that kind of stuff. They're funding radical ISIS, radical Islam, etc. So there are a lot of problems in the Middle East that but again, Trump is dealing with a billion things at once. It's like almost an impossible job to. I'm not an apologist for him or anything, but it just seems like the task before him is so titanic and so gargantuan.
Oh, absolutely, and the fact is that Trump, his real enemies, your real enemies usually are those within your own fold, and I think he's finding that people like Mitch McConnell, of course, people like McCain and Graham, but Paul Ryan.
Goodness. Corker. Do you see the new thing with Corker? Oh goodness.
Yeah. If he really, the guy doesn't have a chance, and then you have the dogs barking at his tail like Mueller. Look, I worked with the FBI for years, and once you appoint a special prosecutor who can go into every facet of your life, you're not going to emerge from that unscathed. And I'm not even sure that Trump will be able to complete his presidency.
Goodness. Very, very ominous, but words of wisdom, of course, coming from Dr. Williams. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today. Carr Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Carr Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Carr Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
Yeah, but I'll state that before, you know.
Alrighty, we're back.
Thank you.
We're back with Dr. Williams, folks, on the King's Board. Welcome back, everybody. Now, Dr. Williams, after the break, we were talking about the Middle East, etc. But let's get to the topic of your new book that is coming out, Among the Ruins. I'm happy to hear that your previous books in Gladio in particular is now getting some good interest from the market.
Yeah, it's being made into a series for AMC, and it should be the series should be up. The series won't be called Gladio; it's going to be called Sindana, and that should be aired. That will air probably within a year. It's a series. It'll be probably a multi-year series. It's going to be extensive.
Wow. Wow, and are they trying to stay true to the research and investigative journalism that you've done, or are they trying to fantasize it a little bit, make it really?
Well, of course, you have to fantasize when you're making up dialogue and stuff like that. But they're going to concentrate primarily on the relationship between organized crime and the Vatican. I mean, it's going to focus heavily on the Vatican.
Wow. Now your new book, Among the Ruins. The Decline and Fall of the Roman Catholic Church. Is this also, tell us a little about that book and how it's related to Gladio, if it is. Go ahead, Dr. Williams.
Well, I think that I was born and raised and confirmed a Roman Catholic. My name, people think that I'm a Baptist because my name is Williams, but, I'm really an Irishman. And
I thought you were evangelical.
Throughout the years, I worked very closely with the Catholic. Much of my adult career, I was the editor of the Fellowship of Catholic Scholars. I was a adjunct professor at the University of Scranton. So I worked for, I was tied in with Catholicism for years and years and years. And what's taking place now within the Catholic Church is cataclysmic. For instance, over the last few years, the Church in America has been losing over 400,000 members a year. That's with the influx. You got to realize that it's a great flow of migration into the country is coming from Catholic countries. So Catholicism should be growing by leaps and bounds, but it's really dying. When I was in 1965, 75% of the Catholics went to Mass every week. That's also figured the 25% who didn't go. Most of them were infirm. They were sick. They were ailing. But 75% went every week. Now, less than 22% of the Catholics in the United States go to Mass at all. They never attend church.
Wow.
Entire practices of the Catholic Church have disappeared. Their belief structure has been eviscerated. And coupled with that, Pastor, you have the fact that, according to the Center for Applied Research at Georgetown, which is a Catholic school, 1 in 10 Catholic priests is a pedophile. 1 in 10.
Wow.
That 60% of the seminarians, Catholic seminarians, are practicing homosexuals.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, and even the corruption even goes deeper than that. That in the United States, for instance, over $90 million of the funds put in collection plates are embezzled. $90 million in funds every year are embezzled. That means the priests are stealing from the collection plate. It's I don't know where to stop, but in the beginning, before the Vatican II, the Catholic Church taught that it was the ark of salvation, outside of which there was no salvation. You had to be a Catholic to be saved. Now, since in recent times, since Vatican II, you have the popes, even like John Paul II, kissing the Quran, saying that all religious expressions are valid. You have the demise of sacramentology in the Catholic Church, where before 1965, every Catholic had to go to confession, receive the sacrament of penance before receiving the Eucharist. Now, everybody goes and receives the Eucharist, and penance is done away with. The entire sacrament has practically disappeared. So the changes in Catholicism, are monumental, and they're really being ignored by the mainstream media. That the church right now is really, as I said at the title, in ruins. You have such a shortage of priests that 1 in 3 parishes are closing, and they're not reopening. They're being ripped down. It's an incredible state of affairs. Cannot recruit new priests. Many of the parishes are being run by deacons, some of whom have very little theological training. You have entire religious orders like the cloistered nuns, and there were hundreds of thousands of them before 1965. They're down to no less than 20,000 in the country. So, it's a situation that I wanted to write about since I was raised in the church, and that's what Among the Ruins is all about.
Well, it's interesting. All in the recent decades, the pedophile scandals. There's just one with Cardinal Pell in Australia. Almost 3 decades of sex trafficking children, and you have even Pope Francis talking like he is like a globalist banker, saying we need open borders. Europe shouldn't have any Christian roots. Islam is a religion of peace. I mean, what is going on?
Well, that's a problem. You got popes like Francis, who, by the way, is not the person that people believe him to be. He was the Superior General of the Superior General of the Society of Jesus in Buenos Aires in the 1970s and 1980s. And when he, in that capacity, Bergoglio, that was his name, supported the military junta that was in power under General Vidalia. And Bergoglio, Francis, what he did was he turned anybody that went against the military junta, went against Vidalia, he would report them to the government. And these people were rounded up. They were a lot of them were placed on planes. They were flown over the ocean, and they were thrown off. They just disappeared.
And that's so
Yeah.
strange because,
So
like,
he-
oh my gosh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
He's been accused of committing crimes against humanity. This is the Pope. And now they present him as this great humanitarian. And it's quite the opposite is true. What he did during the dirty war in Argentina is almost incomprehensible. But right now, as Francis, like you said, he's extending this doctrine of religious indifferentism, where all religious expressions are valid, including Hindu.
Relativism.
At one ceremony in Milan, it was an ecumenical service, and Muslims were invited, Hindus were invited, Zoroastrians were invited, and Buddhists were invited. And in the midst of the service, a voodoo priest came up and started rattling a bone at the Pope. And the Pope said, the Pope said, he's giving us a blessing. I mean, it reached a point where it's almost, what can I say, beyond banality into the realm of the ridiculous. So, and despite Francis and the media attention that he is gathering, the Church continues to diminish in attendance and membership in all aspects of its life.
Well, you also
so he's done absolutely nothing to bring new people into the Church.
Right. Now you also talked to us about when you were at when you spoke to our congregation about how the Vatican Bank historically was used by the intelligence agencies to funnel money during during Mussolini's time in Italy. Is that correct?
Well, what happened? No, it came later. The Vatican Bank was established in 1972. I'm sorry, 1942. The CIA was established in 1947. When the CIA first came into existence, it didn't have any money for covert operations, and it began raising funds by working with the mafia and engaging in the heroin trade. And in 1947, in Italy, the Communist Party was set to take over the government. There were more communists in Italy than in any other country except Russia throughout the world. And the PCI, the Italian Communist Party, once again was set to take over the national election. The Vatican at that time, under Pope Pius XII, was greatly alarmed because if the communists came into power, they would nullify the Lateran Treaty of 1929, which would no longer grant the Vatican status as a separate country within Italy, and it would also do away with the Vatican's tax-exempt status. And the Vatican had enormous holdings throughout the country. So the Church, if the communists came into power in 1947, would be financially destitute. So the Vatican turned to the CIA for help to suppress the rise of the communists, which the CIA did with the mafia, Lucky Luciano and Vito Genovese. They used all types of techniques, including acts of incredible violence, to suppress the Italian Communist Party. And as a result of that, there was a union between the CIA, organized crime, and the Vatican. The Pope allowed the CIA to channel much of its dirty money and the mafia to channel its dirty money through the Vatican Bank. And the Vatican Bank was a perfect place to launder money because it's a separate entity within a sovereign state with no external scrutiny at all by anybody, not by Moneyvale, not by any oversee committee, not by anybody. So you could channel funds into the Vatican Bank, and from those funds that are placed in the Vatican Bank, the money could flow out into numbered accounts in Panama, in Liechtenstein, into Switzerland, and that's what happened. So it became the major laundry the Vatican Bank did for the drug money, and it could.
Now, how is the Vatican Bank associated and or tied to the Rothschild banks, the International Bank of, BIS, Bank of International Settlements, or the World Bank?
Yeah.
Is it connected at all to those organizations in your
Well,
research?
the way it was connected to those banks. I mean, of course, those banks are really banks that control the central banks of governments.
Right.
Like the Bank of International Settlement, as you know, they oversee the Fed, they oversee the Deutsche Bank, they oversee the Bank of England, and that's quite different from the Vatican Bank. The parallel with the Vatican Bank would be something like the PCCI, that was run as primarily as a laundry, or the Nugan Hand Bank that was set up in Australia. Of course, the Vatican Bank. When you talk about the Bank of International Settlements, and and even like the Federal Reserve and the World Bank, you're talking about something that's kind of different than just. I mean, they function on a different level. Of course, the World Bank controls the International Monetary Fund. And, that's completely different from the Vatican Bank. The Vatican Bank really just benefited primarily from the type of exchanges I'm talking about, dirty money. Because for each exchange, every time they would launder money, they would charge 15%. So, that a great deal of their money, their research, that's how they became the wealthiest, the Catholic Church became one of the wealthiest institutions in the world. Prior to 1929, with the Lateran Treaty, the church was destitute, had less than $1 million in assets.
Wow. Now, it's interesting because we just saw an article today about China and how China is taking over parts of the third world by lending the money, putting the countries into debt, and where they can't repay, stealing their, all their assets, their natural resources, et cetera, which they put on as collateral, and now they just harvest the nations.
Not only that, but as you know, they're now building a vast transit system that goes from northern Africa right into China, just to tap into these resources. And when they work with the third world countries, they're completely different than working with the IMF. I mean, they're not putting these restrictions on the government, and the governments in these third world countries look upon the Chinese as benefactors, because there's not a stipulation that the IMF controls part of your, the restructuring of your government. So they're very successful at that, the Chinese.
Well, they're saying that they're going to help rebuild those nations. They go and send Chinese to do the construction work and all the building, so they don't even employ the local people, and then they steal everything after they put you into debt.
But they're not putting the restrictions on the government. They do that. You're absolutely right. Of course, the resources are being raped by China, but they're very successful. Look at eventually, people talk about the United States going to war with Russia, going to war with Iran. That's not going to happen. The real problem for the United States is China.
China, there you are. And Dr. Williams, what do you think, real quick, before we end our broadcast right here, but what do you think about the whole North Korean issue? And, we just reported today, that's breaking news. I haven't seen it anywhere on Western media, but we just broke it today on the show. But we have a conservative commentator in Korea who did this detailed analysis. He's saying the U.S. is already bombing the North because it coincides the seismic tremors that are happening exactly near the nuclear facilities, and with the flight of the B-1B bombers and the different Air Force planes that are flying over North Korea. He's saying that the bombings have already begun.
Well, I think, Pastor, you would be, for me to even speak about Korea to somebody like you would be ridiculous. But as you know, we created a lot of that problem. What we did was we completely disarmed the Japanese, and the Japanese, were their natural enemies. So we did that. We removed. Right now, what we should have been doing, since Dr. Khan had provided nuclear technology to North Korea, well, we should have certainly beefed up the nuclear capability of Southern Korea. But right. I don't understand why, if that's the case, I really doubt that we would get, I can't see the economic advantage for a war with North Korea. But I can once again, I think the real problem is China.
Well, you have this whole issue with the whole economic crisis that's coming. Even though the stock market seems like it's just booming, everybody in the stock market world, Jim Rogers, Peter Schiff, Harry Dent, some of these people who have predicted every single bubble, they're saying there's a huge bubble coming, and there's a big economic crisis coming, big economic bubble coming, and in that situation, a lot of these governments like to start wars, especially when they get found out that they're the ones who created these bubbles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, once again, it's hegemony. Economic hegemony, and we cannot allow. The United States isn't going to surrender that. It's not going to surrender that. It's not going to allow the Chinese to gain all these resources and to become the world's number one power. It's not going to do that, laying down. That's not going to happen. The money interest won't allow that. That doesn't matter you or I or anyone else, but the money interest will not allow that. They have too much. They would destroy all of creation just to save, to protect their interest.
That's so true. Dr. William, thank you so much for joining us today. We covered so many topics. Well, I want to break this down with you a little more and get your incredible insight on a lot of these issues. Maybe we have to have you back on the show at another time. Sorry about the technical difficulties that we had. Hope you have a great class coming up at 12. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Williams. Such a pleasure to talk to you again, my friend.
Pleasure. Okay, good to talk to you. Right. Bye-bye.
Okay, God bless now. All right, folks, that was Dr. Paul Williams, a wonderful man, and, definitely take a look at his new book, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Catholic Church Among the Ruins. Among the Ruins, there it is. And he's exposing the reality of the communization, basically, of the Catholic Church. All righty, that's it for our interview for today, and we will see you right back after this break.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Kings Report this Thursday, October 26, 2017. On our final segment, check out the new Marlin here that I just found. Beautiful Marlin. This was actually on Father's desk. So this is a historical piece here. And of course, it reminds us of Father's love for the outdoors and of course the ocean and fishing. But we are on our final segment. Tim, let's go through our headline news real quick. I hope we can do it. I'm going to stay quiet for the next couple minutes.
Okay. Venezuela default in 48 hours. Illinois doesn't know how many bills are unpaid. Illinois is really in a situation. Hampton mansions a pile up on the market. Rising rents pushing tenants past breaking point. Saudi Arabia becomes first country to grant citizenship to robot. Oh, wait. Droids will have IQ of 10,000. Hold it down, hold it down. DNA scan that can detect 1,800 diseases in newborns raises privacy concerns. Trump's approval hits new low in Fox News poll. I think it's about 38 or something like that. Rosie O'Donnell worried about surviving the presidency. I don't know if that's good news or bad. I'm sorry.
Give me a break.
More than 73,000 Puerto Ricans flee for Florida after Hurricane Maria. Let's see here. University student VP impeached after pledge protest. Kellogg's replacing cereal boxes after racism accusation. Let's get in a few from Breitbart News as well. Their top story is a Hillary campaign, DNC accused of violating election law with dossier payments. Yeah, because it turns out that dossier that alleged that Trump hired a prostitute to urinate on a bed that the Clinton had used in Moscow. This ridiculous dossier was actually paid for, in part at least, by the Democratic National Committee. And so now the whole Russia collusion thing, of course with the uranium thing as well, that whole thing is turning around, and and someone has actually said that she's violating election law, so she may have to stand trial for that.
Lock her up! Okay, go ahead.
Daily Beast, establishment Republicans agree Steve Bannon is kicking our ashtray. Doesn't actually say ashtray.
Kicking our ashtray. That's right.
Let's see. There's also, this is not on here, but on Tucker Carlson last night, this needs to be mentioned. On Fox News, Tucker Carlson had an exclusive report that Jesus Campos, the security guard at Mandalay Bay at the time of the shooting, was allowed to leave the country and come back. He was in Mexico for a while, and he's back in the U.S. now, apparently. So now, the questions about that whole thing are just getting weirder and weirder. Why was this man, he's the only eyewitness to that situation, to that massacre, and he was allowed to leave the country for some time, and then to Mexico to come, and then come back. It's just very, very strange. So Tucker Carlson was trying to get into that. I don't see it on any of the aggregation sites of this morning. Maybe they'll have it later on this morning or this afternoon. I expect that they will. Anyway, that's Tucker Carlson. That's a very important story, I think. Jerry Falwell backs Bannon, calls for evangelical army to rise up.
Wow.
Rise up.
Hey,
Rise up.
All right, Falwell.
To defeat fake Republicans.
Yes.
There we go.
Wow, Falwell, fantastic.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
A left-wing PolitiFact admits Michael Moore is lying about Second Amendment. I'm not sure which lie they're talking about. GOP leader gets 1 million guest workers for food industry in trade for E-Verify.
His lies out of his Jabba the Hutt pores. Go ahead.
You just missed what I just said. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I'll just keep it.
What was it?
I won't repeat it. 1 million guest workers for food industry.
Oh, there you go. Jabba the Hutt. He's happy. He's hungry and happy.
Pollock says Flake, Corker hoping Trump will fall so they can take back their control of GOP.
Flake. This is the guy from Snowflake, Arizona.
Yes,
an actual city
yes.
named Snowflake, Arizona. And the fool's name is also Flake. And he's also a social justice warrior, Flake. Yes. I mean, talk about, what is that, a triple entendre? Triple
I think it's a hat trick in hockey anyway.
He's a Flake. And his name is Flake. And he's from Snowflake, Arizona. And he's a social justice warrior, Snowflake.
And another story about the Las Vegas situation. Las Vegas shooter's brother arrested for allegedly possessing child porn.
There you go.
I don't know. There's something more going on.
There you go.
Danny Tarkanian slams McConnell. Dean Heller for baseless smears against Steve Bannon. Oh, and it's already 8 o'clock, so I must mention, second game of the World Series last night. Astros beat the Dodgers. Boo. So now the series is tied 1-1.
Baseball, boo! Baseball sucks. All right, folks, you heard it first on the King's Report. Thank you for joining us Thursday, October 26, 2017. Make sure you get outside and enjoy the beautiful creation. Even just 5 minutes counts. Get out in God's playroom and playground. Get out there, praise Him at all times. Give Him all the glory. We are in the last end of days, so it is important for all the kings and queens of the kingdom of God to rise up, stand with your crowns and rod of iron with the King of Kings and His 3 kingships. We'll see you back tomorrow, 5 a.m. sharp on the King's Report. God bless Godspeed, and may His kingdom come. I'm headed outdoors now.